Welcome to Black Man Lab. We are live Monday, November 9th. Thank you for being here this evening. We're going to have an incredible panel this evening to talk about our history and to really delve into where we are today and where we've come from. We have an incredible panel today. We will get into that shortly, but first and foremost, we want to talk about what gets us here, where the Black Man Lab started. Black Man Lab started a little bit over 4 years ago with my brother Maurice Davis and 3 other brothers that got together to just get their sons together and be able to share information. And with that, I'm going to bring Brother Maurice in so he can talk about that a little bit. Maurice, you there?
What's up, brothers? Hotep, what's happening? We got the powerhouse up in this joint, man. And then there's Jared wearing his letters. Why, brother? Why? Why must we do this every week? Okay, I know your girl is going to the White House, but let's just stop with the set tripping. And brothers, it's great to see you all, man. You know, this is all about, and it all started really with our sons and the need for us, those who have been working in Let Us Make Man and in different formations, to put something together and help make sure that our sons had access to men that were socially conscious, that were working in their particular spaces at a high level, so that we could show them how you could be a socially conscious filmmaker, professor, preacher, teacher, whatever. And that was the vision behind the Black Man Lab and us gathering them in person typically. But now, of course, due to COVID, we get the opportunity to bring my brother Mario in all the way from DC or Maryland or DMV area. And so on one hand, it's different because we don't get a chance to hug and embrace and show love that we've been showing to the young brothers. But on the other hand, it gives us a chance to pull in people from around the country. And I don't know, Skip might be in Augusta somewhere. I don't know where Skip is, but here he is. And we know Mohab is just sitting on Atlanta dealing with this Mecca. So brothers, we appreciate you all. We thank you. We again, this is being recorded. And so the hope is that the young brothers who can't jump on tonight because of any, school obligations or other obligations, we're just going to keep moving it, keep circulating it, keep it available for young brothers who want this knowledge and information to grow themselves, help build our community and continue to build in the collective. So thank you, brothers, and looking forward to you all sharing out history, what it means to you, especially in this critical moment that we're all experiencing in these yet to be United States. So Marty, I guess we're gonna get Jerry.
Yeah, well, why don't we get started with what we do traditionally every week is we make sure that we are centered first and foremost, and that is being in a place that we are open to taking information in and really letting go of a lot of the stuff that typically weighs us down, especially as Black men, on a week-to-week, month-to-month, annual basis. And again, dare I say it, our whole lives, a lot of the stuff that just weighs us down. But we want to let that go today, especially as we are taking in this great information. And so one of the first and foremost things that we always do is make sure that we reach out to those that came before us, our ancestors. So with that, I want to bring my brother, Jared Grant, and his special little letters that he has on his chest. Bring him in so that he can call on our ancestors and make sure that they are in this space of learning as well. Jared?
Shay, Brother Marty. What's up, brothers? I'm glad y'all are here. We just like to always give thanks to those who came before us, the legacy. We're heirs to those legacies. And so we just want to pay homage and put these folks in our hearts and mind, those who came before us, So just think about some of the great ancestors that brought us here, and lock them in your hearts and mind for a few seconds right now. Now I want everybody to raise their fist, and on 3, everybody say Ashe. 1, 2, 3, Ashe. Now I want you to also think about your own bloodline, your own ancestors, your own legacy, and lock some of them into your heart and mind right now as well. So think of a few of them right now and lock them in. And everybody raise your fist, and on 3, 1, 2, 3, Ashe. I want to thank you, brothers, for allowing us the time and effort to thank our ancestors. Thank you, brothers.
Thank you, Brother Jared. And also, normally when we are meeting in person, as Molly touched on, we have a very interpersonal interaction with one another. And one of the things that we do is we just say, hey, if there's a brother here in this audience that has had a rough day, a rough week, rough month, year, life, whatever, and it's weighing you down, we ask that they just come up front, and then we just give them some Black Man Lab hug. We just wrap our arms around that person. We don't ask questions. We don't want to get into what the details are of why they're having a rough go. They just need to know that we as Black men are here to support them. And so with that, I want to make sure that we are reaching out to our communities right now as we're doing this virtually, and letting you all know that we, us as Black men, us as Black Man Lab, us as this panel are here to support you, and we are here and see you and love you. So with that, Molly, why don't we go ahead and get started, man?
Yeah.
I have a feeling that we're going to have a very lively and some great information tonight.
Yeah. This is it. Want to start right off the top. If you could just introduce yourselves and frame the historical space that you focus on. And I think that's important, because when we talk about historians and we talk about the focus on history, sometimes, folks don't understand that we can focus on certain aspects of our rich history, and they don't understand the breadth and width of our history as a people. And so I'd like for you, if you could, introduce yourself, let folks know where you are in terms of teaching, any publications. I know all of y'all are authors. So just, and then your organizational affiliations as well, but an introduction so that people can really understand that we have 3 very, very serious scholar activists in the tradition. And our tradition of scholar activists runs deep. When we think about it, Jacob Carruthers and Asa Hilliard, Sharcy McIntyre, obviously Dr. Clark, just so many to even name off, but it's that tradition in which brought me into my consciousness. So I'm a part of this movement through those kind of scholar activists. So it was brothers and sisters like you all who resurrected in me my sense of being African. So with that, I'd like to start with Brother Skip Mason, Reverend Doctor, our brother. Brother Mason, come on and give some background for our viewers.
Thank you, Brother Davis, Brother Marty, and to my fellow colleagues and panelists. Good evening to both of you. I'm Skip Mason. I'm a proud native of Atlanta, Georgia, product of the public schools, Morris Brown College grad, Atlanta University grad, before it became Clark Atlanta University, and an ITC grad, my Master's of Divinity and Doctor of Ministry. I've been in the city all of my life. I've worked at the Atlanta Fulton Public Library, taught at Morehouse, served as Dean of Students and Vice President of Student Services there, and as well as Morris Brown, my alma mater. I've written a few books, Going Against the Wind, Black Atlanta in the Roaring 20s, African American Entertainment in Atlanta. I used to serve as a columnist for the Atlanta Daily World, but my joy comes in engaging in conversation with my my Facebook friends on Skip Mason's Vanishing Black Atlanta, and refereeing fights and discussions on their perception of Atlanta's Black history. But I'm glad to be a part of this conversation with these distinguished scholars, and look forward to sharing my little 2 cents worth this evening.
Thank you, Brother Mason. We appreciate you, man. And the piece that you did on Blacks in DeKalb County and Decatur.
In DeKalb County, right.
Right. I reference that all the time when we trying to deal with the gentrification.
Oh, sure. Yeah. Thank you. Thank you.
I just wanted to lift that up for all. I
appreciate that, and I failed to mention that. Yeah.
That's right.
Very proud of that one.
Yes, sir. Brother Maurice, Dr. Maurice Hobson, Georgia State University. Come on in, brother.
How y'all doing this evening?
Good, brother.
All right. As everyone said, it's a pleasure to be here amongst the Black Man Lab, and it's a pleasure to be amongst such a gifted set of scholars and panelists and activists. I am Maurice Hobson. My day job is that I'm an associate professor of African American Studies and historian at Georgia State University. However, I am a dad, I'm a husband, and I am in the virtual first grade every day. And so, we're trying to make it all happen. How I identify myself in terms of the field of history is I'm a historian, social scientist, Africana studies scholar, social justice champion, and award-winning producer. I grew up in, I was born in Jackson, Mississippi. My family is from Mississippi and Louisiana, but I was born in Jackson, Mississippi, and grew up in historic Selma, Alabama. I am from the belly of the beast when it comes to the American South, between a Jackson, Mississippi, a Louisiana, growing up in the Alabama Black Belt. I went product of Selma High School, where the Reverend Dr. F.D. Reese was my high school principal. Played college football and went to college at the University of Alabama at Birmingham. Master's degree at the University of Alabama at Tuscaloosa, PhD from the University of Illinois at Urbana-Champaign. And my areas of expertise are African American history, the total arc, 20th century US history, comparative labor, oral history, ethnography, urban and rural history, political economy, and popular cultural studies. I am the inventor of a new theoretical framework called the Black New South, which basically took place on Georgia Turning Blue. It's about the demographic shifts and the Civil Rights Act of 1964, the Voting Rights Act of 1965, and what that does for Black folk. I am the author of The Legend of the Black Mecca, Politics and Class in the Making of Modern Atlanta. I am a producer for the Atlanta Missing and Murdered on HBO, chief historian for the Maynard documentary, Hip Hop Evolution, the Michael Vick documentary. So we're out here doing what we do. And so I'm just glad to be here. And I'm glad that Brother Miley thinks enough of me to call me sometime. So.
Man, when you say F.D. Reese, the Frederick Douglass Reese, Mr. Vote, I mean, he was Mr. Voter, right? Mr. Voter registration.
That was my high school principal. He was, Amelia Boynton Robinson was my Sunday school teacher. I mean, I grew up in that tradition. And so I love being here in Atlanta, but I am a proud product of Selma, Alabama, baby. So
there it is. There it is. All right. And U of I, baby. Champaign. All right.
I tell you what, real quick though, Miles.
What did you say, Marty? You must have froze, Marty.
No, I was going to say real quick. Can you hear me?
Yeah, we can hear you.
Can you hear me now?
Yeah.
No, I was going to say real quick though. All this stuff that Brother Maurice just said, I wouldn't even have been able to remember it. That's a long list of accomplishments, brother.
Look, they get him on all of these projects, man. I feel like he consulting with Spike Lee and what's our other brothers that's making stuff now, real heavy. Got they're gonna pull you out of academia, man. You're gonna have to sit with these film giants and just focus on films.
Well, I'm gonna tell you something. I wake up and sit on the bed every morning. Every morning I wake up and sit on the edge of my bed and I tell my wife and I tell God, I can't believe this is my life.
Hey.
So I am a prime example of when you hear the folk in the church house talking about let God use you.
You just trying to let him use you.
That's right.
Let him use you. Man, I wanna bring in Dr. Mario Beatty, my brother, man, and I just have to take a couple of seconds. Mario and I met literally over 30 years ago. Mario was at Temple University in the PhD program and was a part of, and I often, he doesn't even understand how much his ears should be burning, the way I reference him and the cadre of revolutionary thinkers and Black nationalist, Pan-Africanist thinkers that were at Temple during that time. I was a ensign in the Navy, organizing in the streets of Philadelphia and connected with this New Jack scholars. And I said, damn, they jacking these rascals for their knowledge and then bringing it back to community, going to the slave theater, you know, in Brooklyn, traveling from Philly. So there's a long, long history, man. And we had Greg Kamathi Carr on probably about a month and a half ago. And so here is another one of those New Jack scholars that came out of Temple, studied under the feet of Dr. John Henry Clark and Asa Hilliard, Jacob Carruthers, Anderson Thompson, Conrad Worrell, and the list goes on. So it's good to see you, brother. And my son was ever so excited to have taken your class at Howard University and was trying to show us the glyphs. So welcome, bro. Come on in, unmute yourself. And I guess whatever I didn't say, you could add on. I know you were at Maurice Brown as well. So I know your history.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Hey, brother, it's good to be here. Thank you all for having me. And it's good to be on this panel with Skip too. We hadn't seen each other in a long time. Last time I saw Skip at Maurice Brown College, he was, I'll never forget, he wrote just a fiery missive called "Put Out of My Mama's House." and all the turbulence at Maurice Brown College was.
You remember that? Oh my goodness.
I was the secretary of the faculty senate taking all the notes. I will never forget that moment. But Maurice Brown College, that was a special place. Yeah. That was a special place in terms of the faculty that were there, the energy. And I must say, I have never found a space that has replicated the magic at Maurice Brown College. Mm. Although I'm at Howard University, I've never found a space quite like Maurice Brown College. And that place holds a very special place in my heart. Very special place on so many levels, because the people that were there didn't have airs, just straight up committed to the liberation of Black people. Mm. And you felt it every day in the classroom. And there was just such a camaraderie among a cohort of faculty that we felt that we were moving in the same boat. And just the electricity of being in the Atlanta University Center, I haven't found anything to replicate it. But I grew up in the Midwest on the banks of the Ohio River, literally in Cincinnati, Ohio. And then I commenced to get all of my degrees in Black Studies at Miami University in Oxford, Ohio, my master's degree at The Ohio State University, and then at Temple University, where I pursued my doctoral degree. So I won't get too much in detail in that, but at Temple, the leader or the director of my dissertation was a man by the name of Theophile Obenga. And Theophile Obenga hails from Brazzaville, Congo, born there in 1936. But Theophile Obenga is probably the finest African scholar that I've ever met. And I got a chance to work closely with him, in addition to all of the other that Wally named. But I got a chance to work extremely closely with him, and he led my dissertation. And my dissertation studied an ancient Egyptian religious text for astronomy. And he was the one who taught me Egyptian hieroglyphs which is what I teach. And I'm in African American Studies at Howard University now, and as an associate professor. I teach Egyptian hieroglyphs in the department, all levels, and it's a direct outgrowth of that training from Obinga. And also, I'm the president of the Association for the Study of Classical African Civilizations now. And so, what I seek to do is to pull those values from our culture and our heritage and use those things to help us to live our lives today, and to help us to inspire us to live today. So I think I'll stop right there. There's a lot more to say about on all of these scores, but in terms of my own work, kind of broad, definitely done work on astronomy, ancient Egyptian wisdom literature, ancient politics. So in African American studies, it's not straight history. I like to do it all. And I like to see how areas connect, and how they intersect in telling the full, complete story as best we can of African people. Okay, so it's not just about what happened, it's how we remember what happened, and all of the tools that we can use to help us to remember what happened, and then how we utilize that going forward.
All right, thanks so much, Brother Mario. Appreciate it, man. We're going to jump further in and get asked, some different questions for you guys. So, again, what we want to be able to do is make this information that we're getting important and translatable to our target audience, young Black men. While we know that it's important for us to be able to reach everybody, we know that if our young Black men are in a better space, our communities are in a much better space. And if our communities are in a better space, then the world's in a better space. So first, what do you, as a historian, what led you down this path of being a historian specifically? What was it that made you say, this is my path? And I'll start with you, Brother Maurice.
So what led to me being a historian is, in full honesty, I grew up with a father that was a professor, mother that was a school teacher, and my mother's a church woman, like a hardcore church woman. And she taught all of her children to read the Bible before we started kindergarten. And so when I started kindergarten, I could read, whereas most of my schoolmates couldn't. And but there was always something particular about reading text, because I could always vividly make it reenacted in my mind. And with that being said, as a small child, I also could hear, if I would hear songs, if I would hear, let's just say spirituals or whatnot, I could always kind of draw a spirit from it to where I could interpret what was being said. So I think being a historian is an actual gift that was bestowed upon me by the universe and the Creator. But when I was in high school under the Reverend Dr. F.D. Reese, we would have this Black History Month Bowl. And every year that I was in high school, I won the Black History Month Bowl. And I took all AP social studies courses. I took several AP courses, but I scored 5s in all of my social studies courses in high school, 10th grade, 11th grade, 12th grade, which meant I had college credit. And I went to college to be a medical doctor, to be like a orthopedic surgeon. I wanted to do sports medicine and all kinds of things. And after a year playing football and enjoying the Million Man March my freshman year, I was learning the ways of Omega Psi Phi Fraternity Incorporated, and had an epiphany moment the day Tupac died. And I feel like the universe came to me and said, you're supposed to be a historian, and if you be obedient, you'll go further than anything that you'll ever do. And I went to talk to my advisor, who was an old minister, is a guy named by the name of Milton Gaines, and Milton Gaines Hurst. And what Mr. Hurst said to me is, I said, sir, I'm here to change my major to history and politics. And he says, why? I said, well, it may not make sense to you, but I feel like God has told me to do this. And he was an old minister. I didn't know it at the time. He says, God has also told you that obedience is better than sacrifice, didn't he? And I said, yes, sir. He says, young man, do you know what that means? And I said, I do, but I want you to tell me. And he told me, and basically what he said is, if you're obedient, you never have to sacrifice to get back in good with God. I made a decision that day, 1996, and I have stayed true to that decision until this day. And so I'm blessed. I think that I've been given a particular set of skills to do this work. And I know what my gifts are. So I just lean into my gifts and try to make it, accessible to the people.
And you know what's interesting is Molly and I always talk about how when we have these sessions of Black Men Lab, there's always some commonality in what our panelists say. And what you just said there is paramount, speaking to your gifts, right? And speaking to what is in order for you. And that speaks a lot to what we hear on a weekly basis. But we want to make sure that we are hammering that home, because we know that in our communities, there's a ton of talent out there that's just not realized because they don't believe in themselves for one reason or another. So it's very, very good to hear that, Brother Maurice. Thank you so much. Brother Skip, how about you? What brought you into
and let me say hello to Mario. I haven't seen him in about 17 years since Morris Brown lost its accreditation. I don't remember you having a bald head, Mario, but it looks good on you.
You're right. I'm joining your club.
Thank you, man. I tell you, but it is so good to see you, and I appreciate the wonderful sentiment about Morris Brown, because it is and was a special place, and we are still in a post-traumatic period, after Morris Brown lost its accreditation, but we have great hope that it will be reaccredited with the leadership of the new president. Similar to Mo in terms of a spiritual and divine path, mine occurred at the age of 14. A white English teacher by the name of Mrs. Guy, who happens to be the mother of actress Jasmine Guy, was my English teacher in high school. And she said, there's a miniseries coming on that I think you might be interested in. I want you to watch it. I want you to keep a journal and turn it in at the end of the week. So the miniseries was Roots. And I had seen the advertisements. I was 14, and we had never seen anything like it. And so that Sunday night, I watched the first episode. And by the following Sunday night, when they stood on the banks of Henning, Tennessee, after having arrived from slavery to freedom, my life was changed forever. I mean, I can't even explain to you the emotional change and the spiritual change. And I wanted to learn everything that I could about my family. So I began as a 14-year-old genealogist, asking questions, collecting material, traveling to Florida, Jacksonville, Florida, Middle Georgia. That kind of led me to my path, but I had no plans to be a historian. When I got to Morris Brown, I was a public relations major and took classes at Clark, just running away from my passion. My last semester at Morris Brown, I took a class from a professor by the name of Dr. Margaret Riley, who was an NYU graduate, a very esteemed professor. And from that point, I went to AU to work on my master's in African-American studies. My advisor was the esteemed Dr. Richard A. Long. And from the African-American studies program, I went into the library science program because I had this love for library and archives and collecting, because I really am a collector. And right now I'm dealing with this emotional piece of my collecting. Why have I collected so much over the last 40 something years? I have storage units filled with material. I have a box or two for every year of my life that I've saved material and things. So now I'm kind of wrestling with and trying to make some sense of this collection that I have. So all of that led to that. Everything has been just fortuitous and divine. When I was a student at Morris Brown, I walked over to the Herndon home. I had heard rumors about the Herndon home. It was not open. And I knew that was a place where Mr. Herndon lived. My daddy said when he was a student at Morris Brown, he would go over and play cards. The basketball players would go over and play cards. That's another story in itself. for another time because, you know, Norris Herndon was gay and well known, but he loved to invite the athletes over to his mansion. And so my daddy had told me that story, but I never connected the dots. I'm peeping into the window of the Herndon home. This was in 1983, and someone peeps back out to me. And I mean, it scares me to death. She points to the door, she opens the door. It is Mrs. Porter, the longtime housekeeper. She said, baby, you don't have to peep in, just ring the doorbell. She invited me in, took me around, and then took me downstairs. And downstairs was Dr. Carol Merritt, who was the first director of the Herndon home. She was working on her PhD at Emory. She asked me if I could type. And I said, yes, I can type. I was not the best typist, but I could. She gave me a typing test. As God would have it, the phone rang while I was taking the typing test. She went to answer the phone. So I cheated a little and I finished my document. When she came back, I got a job as the first tour guide at the Herndon home. Worked there for 2 years. Dr. Riley said they're hiring at the King Center. Her son was over park rangers, Dean Riley. I got hired at the Martin Luther King Malu, as we called it, wearing the green outfit uniform. From there, I went to visit a friend at the Atlanta Fulton Public Library, trying to sell some pictures of something I had collected. I left there with a job as a researcher, and I ultimately went on to library school. So God has just led me through this path, through this journey. I did a genealogy workshop at Morehouse for Dr. Alton Hornsby in January of 1991. In the fall of 1991, he was looking for adjunct professors, and I got a call. And as long as I had a master's, I could teach. So he was hiring adjunct professors. My desk mate was Professor Umoja at Georgia State. We shared a desk. And I don't tell anybody, Umoja kept candy and gum, and there were ants all over it. But don't tell him I said that. So that's how my life has been, you know, and I'm grateful for the divine guidance and the divine presence and how God is guided. In between, I became interested in trying to write books and collect information on Atlanta's history. One thing led to another. I could give you 5 more of those divine stories, but that's how my journey led to that. Sometimes I struggle with calling myself a historian, but Dr. Johnetta Cole once referred to me as a cultural anthropologist. That's what she called me. And so I like that term. It was something about it because I'm collecting and digging and saving and sharing and writing and all of those kinds of things. So that's sort of my journey, Marty, to this field. And I taught history, again, at Morris Brown and at Morehouse. And that's where I had the pleasure of meeting Dr. Beatty. And they loved Dr. Beatty. The students loved him. At least that's what they told me.
Yes. I think that's remained consistent. So I try to stay on the love side.
Oh yeah, they loved you.
It's a good place to be, brother Mark.
Yeah. Absolutely.
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 Thanks so much, brother Skip, man. And that really speaks to us following what the Creator has for us, right? That's all you did. Followed that, and it's got you to where you are today. So thank you for that so much. Brother Mario, please tell us your, I'm sure, interesting path.
Yeah, and I'm with Skip. You know, I've collected Africana all my life. You know, in Chicago, I have 2 10 by 10 foot storage units. I have stuff in my basement here, all in my 3-bedroom townhome here. So I was like, Skip, I've got my papers since my 2nd grade.
Wow.
Literally, they're out in the garage now in a suitcase. So I have collected. I can actually chart my growth. I've got all my folders from every class that I've taken. In undergrad, every class. And so I've kind of, had that type of meticulous, kind of, archival mind in terms of charting that. But, my family in Cincinnati, I always loved the stories that my brothers and sisters would tell growing up during the Civil Rights Movement and trying to desegregate institutions, whether it be swimming pools, schools, etc. in Cincinnati. That activism, it stayed with me. You know, it stayed with me. It was something that was there. It wasn't activated until I got into my undergraduate career. Shortly before that, I would say on the history side, there was probably one teacher that I took. I was in the International Baccalaureate program at Withrow High School in Cincinnati. And there was probably one teacher that I took. Her name was Patricia Strain. And she actually taught world history. And her passion was actually Russian history. But I'm telling you, her passion about world history in general and its connection to daily life, there was just something that, it was like poetry. It was something that stuck with me. You know, her passion, and you know, when you feel a professor's passion in the classroom, and they're actually committed to the subject matter, and it's just not information, you know, that stuck with me for sure. And when I got to be an undergraduate student, I thought I was going to kind of go into like international affairs with kind of a focus on Africa. And I realized very early on that international affairs, that the teachers just weren't what I wanted, you know. And so I switched to basically a double major between Black World Studies and History at Miami University, because most of my courses were actually in history. So Black World Studies was kind of like an interdisciplinary configuration there, but so most of my courses were in the field of history. And I got a chance to have a lot of great mentors there. But I would say that as a freshman, the texts, we're talking about people, but there are texts that can change your life too. And the text that changed my life as a freshman was The Miseducation of the Negro by Carter G. Woodson, published in 1933. That text reframed everything for me in terms of my purpose for actually being in school. That text, like when you look at that text and the marginalia that I have in my original text, it's just all marked up. You know, that text had a deep impact on me. And Carter G. Woodson, that text inspired me, I think, to just really go all in Black World Studies and just, you know, to do all I can, because in my heart, that's really what I wanted to do. And so once I made that decision, which was in my freshman year, I never looked back. And I had great mentors at Miami University. I won't name them all, but Othello Harris, who was one of my finest mentors there, who is a Black sports historian, who took me under his wing and, you know, just showed me the ropes, took me to conferences. I mean, it was just, you know, the confidence that he showed in me as a student, that always stayed with me. I had another great mentor, Susan Mosley Howard, who was in educational psychology. She introduced me, she was the one who introduced me to all of the African-centered psychologists. And that stayed with me. You know, once I learned that information, that became part of my path. And then I had other professors like Maynard Swanson, who was white. He was white. The others were Black. But Maynard Swanson was a labor historian in South Africa. He had a real passion for South African history, and I loved South African history because of that. So I took a number of courses in terms of African history and South African history with him. So I think those are the major courses that kind of stuck with me as an undergraduate student. And then I went on to Ohio State University, where I just had a lot of great mentors. William Nick Nelson, Black studies scholar, political scientist, key to my development as a scholar, and he was very demanding. Linda James Myers, another African-centered psychologist, who was my key mentor at Ohio State University. and I love her. I stay in touch with her until this very day.
Mario, were you in what school were you in Ohio State then? Did you go to law school too, or were you?
No, I didn't go to law school with Greg and Valitia.
Okay.
I didn't go to law school. I was just in the master's degree program in Black Studies.
Got you. Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Here, brother.
So she was, she was a key mentor for me also. I loved her classes, and I loved her approach to creating community in classes. That always stayed with me too. And there are a number of other individuals too, but those are the ones that stand out. And then when I got to Temple, there are a number. I actually went to Temple looking for Dawoodi Azibo. And Dawoodi Azibo, I actually kind of shifted. I was shifting toward African-centered psychology. So I actually kind of went to Temple looking for him and looking to study with him, but, realizing that he was on his way out of Temple as I was coming in. And that was a real shock to me. And then I had to just try to figure out, well, I'm here, what am I going to do? And the next year, the year after I got there, was the year that Theophile Obenga came to Temple University, and as a visiting scholar. And Theophile Obenga came, and he taught Egyptian hieroglyphs. And of course, like I didn't have a real terrible, real interest in Egyptian hieroglyphs like that. But it's like for me, everyone knew, so many people knew that when Theophile Obenga is teaching a class, you take it. Because you're going to get something out of that class, whatever it is, because of his background. And I took that class and, was just, really kind of the top student in the class. And we would go on, we'd have these long talks. We would go to his apartment, which was on campus. And he kept nudging me to pursue seriously this area. And I was resistant. I wanted to do, by that time, I had become interested in either Black Reconstruction, which I'm fascinated with, that moment of indeterminacy and Black self-determination on the ground and how that manifests in, all of the states. I'm fascinated with that moment. In addition to that, Marcus Garvey, I wanted to do something on Marcus Garvey. And Obenga, and I had actually went to University of Michigan. I had kind of decided on Black Reconstruction, got hundreds of articles at the University of Michigan, brought them all the way back to Temple University and preparing for, to write my dissertation proposal. And Theophile Obenga was taking an astronomy class while he was teaching the Egyptian hieroglyph classes. And he just sat me down, and I have the notes. He just sat me down in his apartment. And he was like, Mario, this is what you're going to do. You're going to write a dissertation on ancient Egyptian astronomy. You're going to read this spiritual text for astronomy, and I'm going to give you the outline. And this is exactly what you're going to do. He was like, everybody's done Garvey. So many people have done Reconstruction. And he said, if you do this, you will make a real serious, deep contribution. And he's like, don't worry about money. It's going to come because your name is going to be in lights. If you do what I tell you to do. This is a spiritual experience because I didn't have to yield, but I yielded.
You were obedient.
Yes, I was obedient. I yielded, and I felt that, okay, I'm going to go all in. And I went all in, went to Chicago where I worked with Jacob Carruthers, stayed in his house for 2 weeks, just copying off about 500 manuscripts from the University of Chicago, and came back, wrote that dissertation, which I'm very, very proud of. Took a lot of hard work, although Obenga, just sliced it up. So he cut about 200 pages off of it before it actually was a final product. And I learned something from him. But it was that relationship, you asked me, like, and working with, Dr. Carruthers also. But Obenga is the most seminal influence, I think, on my intellectual thought and trajectory, for sure. And he is the one that has inspired me. And it's about more than just history, because he does everything. And he's in the tradition of Sheikh Anta Diop. And that means that you just like, they do everything, you know, they want to know it all, you know. So they're doing language, history, linguistics, science, education, politics. They do it all, you know. And so that's who I've tried to kind of model, you know, myself after as a scholar in the academy. And that's really kind of what inspired me to go into history. I would really say Africana in this type of way, which goes beyond history.
Man, it's rich. It's a lot, man. The connectivity that all of you all have around spirituality leading you in this space, that this is more than a profession, right? It's more than, this is how I make a living. This is really something that's deeply in your spirit and in your soul. And I want to go to that before I jump into that really quickly, because we are just running out of time. I should have known to put some time parameters on you brothers, because you know this is, we end at 7:45, but y'all historians, y'all gonna
That's
talk
the introduction.
like, y'all talking like lawyers and preachers up in here. But you are so really quickly. I want Skip, if you can, brother, what text was transformative for you, just really quickly, and why? And brother Maurice, the same for you. What text? What's that text that, you know, I mean, I always hear people say, you know, man, Malcolm X did it for me. And, you know, for me, it was The Destruction of Black Civilization. Marty got me the Chancellor Williams' Destruction of Black, and Edward Robinson's Journey of the Songhai People. Yeah, those two were like, boom. And I was like, okay, let's go. What about for you, Brother Mason?
That's the easy one. John Hope Franklin, From Slavery to Freedom. Just changed my trajectory, my life. And I read one of the earlier editions of the book, and it was just life-changing. It put everything that I had seen in context, you know, about my family and my African heritage, and it allowed me to walk through that. And very quickly, the dream of my life came when I had the opportunity to spend 4 days with John Hope Franklin in his home and drive his brown Lexus.
Get out.
I was there the whole time. I was the driver. I was working on an exhibit for him, on him for the fraternity, Alpha Phi Alpha fraternity. That was the best 4 days of my life. I'm telling you, the absolute best 4 days of my life.
Man, it's amazing, the connections, because the most inspiring photograph for me is the photograph of his father in the Red Cross tent. With law partner and legal secretary. I have it on every place that I have considered sacred. I have that photograph. And I reached out to his son to, you know, when I was in DC, to let him know that your grandfather continues to inspire lawyers to pitch a tent if need be in order to fight for your people. So I'm with you. I'm with you on that.
And you know, I'm a preacher and a pastor. He was Buck Colbert Franklin was a CME. They grew up Christian Methodist, colored Methodist as it was at the time.
Yeah. There you go. There it is.
Y'all know his nephew lives here in Atlanta. He's my brother-in-law's grandfather. He's Kimani King's grandfather.
What?
Yeah. So
John Hope Franklin's nephew.
So his name is Robert Williams. So So Grandpa Bob is what we call him. But that's my brother-in-law's grandfather.
Wow.
So yeah.
That's deep. Yeah. What's your text, Mo?
I got two, and this will be really quickly. The first was The Souls of Black Folk, because of how comprehensive it was and the way in which Du Bois is kind of talking in this kind of, it's like he's observing something. It's very interesting. But the book that really changed my life was this book right here, written by my dissertation advisor, Dr. James Anderson, The Education of Blacks in the South. And I'm gonna tell you why this is important. One of the things I've noticed about a lot of scholars is they want to be extremely over-the-top intellectual. And for me, it's about accessibility to the people. It's about giving the people the knowledge so that they can use it to weaponize. And the way in which Dr. James Anderson was really able to talk about how Black folks saw education as a particular tool to liberate themselves and to protect themselves, and how education becomes a political football. it changed my life. And so I had the pleasure to go to University of Illinois and study under Dr. James Anderson. And it's been good. So this book is that real down home Black Southern, that Black Southern brilliance in a very particular kind of way that is very resonant. So that's the book that changed my life.
Yeah, it's a beautiful
All right.
text.
All right, so check. Here's where we are. We're in this moment in history. We've got all these young brothers who will, if they're not watching now, will watch this. Connect the dots, because so often history has been this, that was then, this is now kind of rhetoric. You know what I'm saying? And history, and the reason I'm so passionate about it, changed my life. It unlocked for me. Like, I didn't have any grandfathers, but it gave me grandfathers. It gave me great grandfathers. I didn't have any sense of being African. It took me to the continent. I was ashamed at times, growing up, right? Where we have these stereotypes that are built into our psyche by this white supremacist historical system and what we experience. But that history made me who I am. I'm standing on it every day. I'm going into court. I pour libation. You did, because I know it is Johnny Cochran and Constance Baker Motley and Donald Lee Holloway and C.B. King and then going to the Imhotep, that multi-genius. So connect it up, y'all. Like, really, if you could succinctly give them 2-3 minutes each of why history is so important right now in this moment as we stand on the brink of another shift. And I'm going to jump to you, Mario, and then come to you, Brother Mason, and then for you. 2 or 3 minutes, hit them hard with it so that these young brothers can get this. This might be what we cut and just put out on IG. I don't know.
Well, I was listening to a news program this morning. I think it was MSNBC, and there was a guy named Thomas Ricks who's coming out with this book is about to come out. If it's not out, already out. I think it's already out, called First Principles, on the founders of this country. And Thomas Ricks, the whole book is about how the founders of this country, Hamilton, Jefferson, etc., how they created this country fundamentally in a conversation with Greek and Roman philosophy and social practice, and everything else was secondary. And trying to figure out how to apply that model in a new environment. Like, we don't see the footprints of the past, but those footprints are always there. And so when African people want to do the same thing, that is, when African people seek to use the fullness of African humanity in time and space and to leverage that to build and to construct alternative ways of being and seeing in the world, that's often just framed as romanticism. But when white people do it, it's just normal and natural. And there's no question about it. There is history, there is deep philosophy behind the past. And the past is what happened, but how we remember what happened is more important. And how we use that past is more important, to leverage that in order to make better decisions. And so, when we're looking at our past as African people, we have to stand on our own cultural values, our own historical values, our own communal values. Just like Du Bois, we have something to offer to the world that is not a mirror image of whiteness or white people and what they have created. And we have to have the courage to stand on that and to utilize that to make the lives of ourselves, our families, and our communities stronger. All human beings do that. And, I'll just, kind of close this by saying, the history, of a dominated people is always written for them. But the history of a liberated people is always written by themselves. We have to be the authors of our own past so that we can be the authors of our own self-determination and liberation.
Ashe. Thank you, brother. Brother Mason.
I'm sorry. Okay. So I'm going to be real quick. I'm viewing this moment in the lens of a collector. And I am telling everyone to collect and gather as much as you can in this moment. And in this period, I wish I had time to go to my garage. There's a brother named Dion Stanford that sells some of the best posters. I don't know if you can see it or not, but he has a tremendous collection. People are buying them up, documenting this period that we're living in. One of the things that our young people have that we didn't have 20 or 30 years ago is that they have a cell phone. And with this cell phone, they can record, they can take pictures, they can capture the moment. Every morning, Facebook makes sure that you are reminded of what happened last year, 5 years ago, sometimes 10 years ago. Every day I'm getting some reminders. I actually forgot, Mo, that this occurred. Pictures that are somewhere in the cloud that I had forgotten, great pictures. And so Facebook is really recording for our generation, but we need for our kids, but we need to make sure that they understand that they need to catch and grab. I'm talking about getting campaign signs, Nikema Williams, Raphael Warnock, Joe Biden and Kamala Harris, collecting the tangible piece, putting it aside somewhere, because this will ultimately help tell and demonstrate the story, saving the photographs that are helping to define the moment, that we're in. I recorded a video on Saturday after I heard the announcement, because I'm telling you, I had a Jubilee moment on Saturday. I felt like I had been released from slavery, that I was part of the Israelites marching to the promised land. That's how I felt. And I didn't even know it didn't happen. I was on a Zoom and I called my mom to check on her. My mom was diagnosed with cancer. Keep her in your prayers. She's in her second phase of chemo. And I called mom and she said, ain't it a blessing Biden won? I said, they announced it? She said, yeah, where you been? I was on a Zoom. And I'm telling you, I shouted. I recorded it because I wanted my kids and anyone else who watched to capture the moment. So my last point, we got to remind these young brothers who are watching, capture the moment. Shoot your selfies, your recordings, and capture the moment that we're living now, the good, the bad, and the not so good.
Very good advice.
And just really quickly, I see history as a weapon. Studied and interpreted wisely, it can help defend, protect, and unify our people. If history is ignored or forgotten, or misconstrued, it can be a part of the miseducation of people, to have them go into the back door when they've not even been told to do so. Of all of our studies, history is so very important. I want to tell you all a really quick story. I'm an avid football fan. I'm an avid college football player, and I played a lot of football in my life. And about 18 years ago, this new offense emerged in college called the Wildcat, where a running back or a quarterback or whoever would just get in the backfield. They'd hike the ball to him. And I remember I was at Illinois at the time. I remember talking to Coach Ron Turner. And now I'm just in graduate school. And I was like, I know how to defend the Wildcat. And he said, how? I said, well, when I was in high school, there was a school in Tuscaloosa that ran an old offense called the Notre Dame Box. What I'm saying is when you study history, you can see the beast before it comes. Mm-hmm. And you can prepare yourself and you can attack. You can take it out before it even sees you. And so the thing about this in terms of connecting the dots, with everything that we have going on right now, particularly in terms of voter suppression and whatnot, What Brian Kemp did was a playbook that Herman Talmadge did, the complicated balloting system, the gerrymandering, the voter suppressing, the literacy test, the poll tax with the voter ID. I mean, like, history is a weapon. And what we must know and understand is it doesn't feel good. You just got to be strong to do Black history, because at the end of the day, what makes Black folks special, that Black folk magic, is we're resilient. We're still here. So history is a weapon. That's the point that I always want to push.
We're still here. We still here. Come on, Marty.
Absolutely. And Brother Maurice, you're leading right into kind of what I wanted to piggyback that off of was that is repetitive, right, in history. The problem I think that we run into is being able to understand the greatness of our history, and to your point, that resilience. What do you all think is the key to getting that message across? What is the key to getting our young folks that have the energy right now? They have the energy, but getting them to understand the level of greatness that they come from, but then also understanding that we don't need to play in the white folks' playbook because of our history. And
you breaking up a little bit, Marty, but I think they heard it. I think they got it. Brother Mario, you want to start off?
Sure. I mean,
I'll hit it in 2 or 3 minutes because we want to get one more question in, y'all.
Okay, well, I'll just say, very quickly. I mean, the key for me with young people in terms of addressing your question is to give them as many opportunities as possible to let them sit at the feet of elders and connect them to institutions and organizations in our community that are doing the work, that are doing the work in terms of our liberation, and connect them with, ASALA, connect them with NCBS, connect them with ASCAC, intentionally, connect them with these organizations that are here, that are the memory keepers, that are the cultural keepers, that are the political consciousness and organizations, and so they're, young people are very inspired. I'm inspired by them, actually in terms of their activism. So they have something to teach us too, in terms of this moment, in terms of what they're doing on the ground. But I would just say that we have to, make sure that they have an appreciation of the long arc of our history and the whole range of organizations that are doing the work to push our freedom dreams forward.
And Brother Mario, I know you also, because we were trying to make it to Kemet, you also take people, young people, students, to those spaces for them to be able to put their hands and really be able to read the glyphs, the medu netra for themselves. So I know that's a work.
And we run study abroad programs that, out of our own department to Ghana, to South Africa, to Haiti, so we have a range of places. So it's not just Kemet. So we're doing a lot of work on all of these fronts, and that's important because that's life-changing. When students see something beyond the United States, they come back changed wherever they go.
No doubt. Brother Mason.
Yes, quickly,
I think that's key. I think that's key too.
Right.
No, go ahead, Brother Skip.
Oh, sure. Quickly, constant reinforcement that we are continuing to reinforce our story, our greatness, our accomplishments. Secondly, meeting them where they are, okay? Social media is here to stay, all right? And my kids had to hit me and tell me, Daddy, we're not on Facebook. We're not on Facebook. Facebook are for the old folks, okay? They say we're on Twitter, and most important, they're on TikTok. So my kids during the holidays are helping me to take content of Vanishing Black Atlanta to TikTok, okay? Because I don't know anything about TikTok other than what I see. But we got to learn how to meet the kids where they are in this day and age in order to get the same stories that we got from a different method.
Brother Mo.
We gotta love these young people. We have to show them that whatever they see out there that seems to be a threat, that the love that we have at home is much more stronger. I am a true bridge between generations in terms of I can sit down with Andrew Young, who, you know, there are a lot of people who would say that I was really harsh and critical of him in my book, when he is grateful for what I wrote, because he was like, you actually told the truth about what this is. But then I can also sit down with some of these young rap artists. And the thing about it is the young rap artists are frustrated. Really quickly, I called Molly over the summer because a family friend of mine who plays for the Celtics was coming to Atlanta from Boston to organize and protest and had no plan. And I was like, Molly, we need this. I need you to kind of rope him in. And the reason that is I understand that they have energy and I understand that they're vigorous, but you got to talk to some older folk who've been able to see some things before. And so we do have to meet them where they are. But we also got to let that energy, we got to let that wealth of energy and savoir-faire that they have be seen. And so I take it upon myself. I challenge myself to continue to be that bridge to connect the old to the young, because what they're facing, the young people are facing, our elders have met that in many different kinds of iterations.
Ashe. Brothers, we always close out with your habits, rituals, or disciplines. What is it that you do, right? You all have earned the right to be considered scholar activists, cultural anthropologists, servant leaders, folk who just people turn to for knowledge, information, wisdom, and direction. What do you do on a daily basis that feeds your spirit, that allows you to be all of these different things: husband, father, pastor, educator, confidant, mentor, Jegna, the whole gamut? What do you do, right? Because what we want young brothers and sisters who are watching to walk away with is, should I or could I incorporate some daily activities that will strengthen me so that I can emerge and become the person that, as all of we've been talking about, as the Creator and the ancestors have called us to be. We all have just kept talking about how we are on our best day, just living what we believe we've been called to do. How do you ground yourself, and what do you do in terms of habits, rituals, and or disciplines? So brother Mario, and then we'll come around the horn.
Sure. A number of things, you know, it's not just about reading books. It's about building character and living life in this particular moment. And so I've always loved, loved a range of spirituality, but I've always loved, African spirituality. And so that is one thing that I'm involved in my own, kind of personal practice that I use to center me. And, that involves, invoking ancestors, that energy, making sure, communing with them, honoring them. And indeed, in ancient Egypt, the word for ancestor means those who are in front. That is, that they didn't conceptualize themselves as moving away from their ancestors. They conceptualized themselves as moving toward them. They were in front of them. This is why you see the culture being built like that, in terms of the tombs and temples. Why they invest so much in those things is because ancestors are in front of them. And so when you do these rituals of libation, those are rituals to invoke energies that you assume are living, that they're present. It's not something that you're doing a shout out to that were in the past. It's like when you invoke those energies, they are there. So I use that to help ground me spiritually. And so I'm involved in Lukumi, Orisha worship. So I'm a priest in that system. So that's a very important part of my life on a spiritual level. On an intellectual level, what I will say is, that it's about discipline. Everything that you want to accomplish is about the doing of it, And so, for these young men who are listening to this, is that, find your passion. And once you find it, and once you find your niche, be disciplined and be committed to doing something every day, however small, to accomplishing that goal, and keep that goal at the foremost part of your heart and mind. And it's going to come to fruition despite the obstacles and challenges that you face. And so, all of our spiritual systems are geared toward helping us to overcome problems and to overcome these challenges. And so all of them have that power, but we have to find the strength from those systems and from our ancestors in order to pull us through this moment. So I'm in constant communion. That's what being a historian is. It's constant communion with ancestors, quite frankly. So being a historian is actually a spiritual experience, in and of itself.
I appreciate that. Brother Mason.
Yes, quickly, I start my day in prayer. I read my devotions. I get up. The picture over my left-hand shoulder is my great-great-great-grandmother, born 1834 on a plantation in Houston County. She died in 1932. She had 7 children, 5 enslaved during slavery and 2 afterwards. So I acknowledge her every day. This picture gives me strength. I also acknowledge the unknown. I have, and I don't know whether you can see it, but up above my dining room, I have a series of photos that I at flea market. Somebody's ancestor ended up in a flea market. And I don't know how it got there. I must have about 15 of them in those old wooden frames that airbrush. And I just felt drawn to take them and put them in my home until they find their way to whoever they belong to. So I not only acknowledge my known, but to also honor the unknown ancestors. I try to walk every day, and commune again, Mario, with my feelings, my emotions, things that are going on. And then I end the day, pretty much the very same with prayer, and just try to focus on the goodness and ask God throughout the day to order my steps, So I'm in constant conversation, with my making creator and my ancestors throughout the day.
Ashe. Appreciate you. Brother Mo.
Just really quickly, professionally, what I do, the promise that I made was to always tell the truth. The second thing is to always be loyal to Black people in the land that they stand on. The last thing, my prayer every morning is that every time that someone witnesses me, they can see the power of God, no matter who he or she is, and my ancestors. I want them to be able to say, there's something bigger that has something to do with it. That's my professional thing. Personally, I laugh every day, and I do 10 miles on an elliptical in an hour. I have to work out every day to maintain the kind of mental health so that I can deal with the fiery darts, as we would say. Yeah. And so that's where it is. You have to laugh. You can't take yourself so serious. We can't take ourselves so seriously all the time. It has been hard not to do that in the last 8 months. But that's what I do. I laugh, I exercise, and I try to always be true to who I am. So.
Man.
I work out too. I work out every day too.
Yeah.
It's needed.
Yeah, I'm man, we're very grateful. Marty, can you try to come in? Because Marty's been having some technical difficulties. I want to make sure that come on, try to come in, Marty.
Yeah. Can you hear me?
We got you. You gonna close us out, brother?
All right. Well, brothers, hey, yeah, man, I just want to say thank you so much, brothers, for sharing your history and sharing your level of knowledge with with us and all those that are listening in on the Black Man Lab this week. We always say every week that we do this. When we get back together in person, we are going to commission you guys to come in person so that you can be in the space in what we call our safe and sacred space to share your knowledge with all the men in the room. So thank you for that. Every week we close out with a tradition. Molly, I'm going to let you close through the tradition because you do it so well, brother. This is something that we want to keep in what we do every week because we have to let our community know we are here and we are not breaking. We are going to be together for the duration. So, Brother Molly.
So, brothers, if you could take yourself off of mute. This was given to us by one of our queen mothers here in Atlanta by the name of Injiri Alghani. And we would gather in meetings. And as we close meetings, we would either lock hands or lock arms. And so we are symbolically locking arms right now with each of you and spiritually locking arms with brothers and sisters all over the world who are watching this or will watch this. And if you would just repeat what Mama Injiri taught us. I am a link in this chain.
I am a link in this chain.
And it won't break here.
And it won't break here.
I am a link in this chain.
I am a link in this chain.
And it won't break here.
And it won't break here.
We are links in this chain.
We are links in this chain.
And we won't break here.
And we won't
break here.
Ashe.
Ashe.
Thank you, brothers.
Brothers,
God
thank
bless.
you again.
God bless. Lifting your mom up, brother Mason. Lifting your mom
Absolutely.
up.
Yes, sir.
All of you brothers, all your work. We lift all your work up. Thank you all for what you do for our people and for the struggle.
Thank you.
Appreciate it.
Thank you. Thank all of you, man.
Thank you all.